Oi, get! Have you ever had a dungeon run like this?
Let's go, in and out, 20 minutes adventure. I can't fucking do this anymore!
Everyone's gonna tell you that DPS is easy. Well, the problem is, DPS is the hardest role in the game. Because everybody's gotta do mechanics. Sure, but we've gotta do something else. Something more important. We have to get big numbers. This guide is gonna show you how to DPS Gunbad the right way. To get it started off, let's get some of the preliminary stuff out of the way. First things first, how do we get there? Easiest way is to be in a guild that has access to the guild hall of your faction and go and buy a Gunbad scroll. This will teleport you straight to the outside of the instance for Mount Gunbad. If you don't have it, you're going to need to fly to the Badlands and go to the top left corner of the map. Once you're in the instance, go over and talk to Gorbaz Toughjump. He provides the repeatable quests to grab all of the red eye set pieces by running the dungeon 3 times. You can get the gear set sooner by pulling the items from gold bags. However, this means that you never need to run the dungeon more than 3 times to get your full red eye set. The other repeatable quest is from Rube the Reddest. This NPC is for the repeatable speedrun quest that rewards champion crests. An important part of dungeons is making sure the pulls are clean, using AoE to maximize damage output, and using single target to clean up any ranged stragglers that may not have been pulled into it. Also making sure to keep enemies in front of you to get the most out of defensive such as parry. When jumping off the ledge, make sure to hit the pillar to minimize fall damage. The first boss of Mount Gunbad is Griblik da Stinka, accompanied by old Greenwingz. Greenwingz will drop rotten eggs that, if broken through damage or AoE, will spill green puddles on the ground that deal area damage. Don't stand in the green stuff. Greenwingz dying will cause Griblik to enrage and kill your party. So single target on Griblik, and the fight is fairly simple. Once you defeat Griblik, you will see a spawn of 3 buffs. These buffs will be randomized between minor, moderate, and major, and different attribute boosts. Either damage, crit, healing, speed, morale gain, so on and so forth. An important thing to remember is that 2 buffs of the same exact type do not stack. So a minor damage and a minor damage will not stack. But a major, moderate, and minor will all stack. If you happen to take a buff that you already have, it will just simply reset the time remaining on that buff. The first mini-boss is Bilebane the Rager. Fairly simple boss, tank and spank, not a whole lot for us to do except stand behind the boss and deal damage. After Bilebane, but before the next boss, we want to make sure to clear the area of all extra mobs. The next boss is Garrolath da Poxbearer. Garrolath has 2 major mechanics. First, he spawns Nurglings during the fight that spawn out in the middle of the room, then converge on the party and himself. While the Nurglings are alive and near the boss, they will continually heal him. The more Nurglings on the boss, the more healing he receives. The second mechanic is a stacking damage debuff on the party called Putrid Stink. You can cleanse this by standing underneath the waterfall in the boss room. If you have 7 or more stacks of Putrid Stink, when it is cleansed, you will gain a temporary damage buff. This can stack up to 15 times, so stacking it up to 15 times and cleansing it will give you a large damage spike in the fight. Once you cleanse it once, it may be better for ranged to remain under the waterfall as to not get the second round of damage debuffs. The next mini-boss is Kurga da Squig-Maker. Classes that have abilities that remove blessings and enchantments should use them whenever possible on this boss, as he gives himself a massive damage increase buff that can be removed with these. Another mechanic is his punt. He will single out a character in the party and punt them into the air. When they land, they will deal a massive amount of damage to themselves and anyone around them. While in the air, players should use a detaunt, and anybody who would be near them when they landed should move away, also using detaunt. During the fight, bubbles will spawn along the edge of the arena that will continually spawn squigs. Kill these bubbles as soon as possible to avoid additional adds. The next boss is Foulmouth the Ungry. The tank will be moving the boss around the arena to the different mushrooms that spawn when the boss is engaged, so if you are a less mobile range class, figure out what path the tank is going to take and set up in that path so that you can deal the most damage possible. Otherwise, this fight is fairly straightforward. The final boss of the left wing is Glomp Squig-Maker. This boss does not move. During the fight, a player will be marked with a red beam. This is a 10-second debuff before a damaging green pool is placed underneath the player's feet. Make sure this is placed off the platform and not on the ramps. When the light disappears, you have a moment before the puddle spawns, allowing you to get out of the area before taking the damage. At 90%, and then again at 70%, the boss will become immune to all damage, and summon melee adds that everyone should stack on the tank to group the adds up to AoE them down. At 50%, the boss will summon ranged adds, which will be harder to group up, so stacking on the tank is very important. At 30%, the boss enters a squig armor stance, and shouts, "Here comes the pain." When this happens, the boss will begin bouncing, dealing massive damage to anyone left on the platform. Everyone but the tank should get off the platform as soon as possible. If a tank and player are geared, the tank and their guard target can remain on the platform to continue dealing damage. When the boss stops bouncing, players can return to the platform to return to dealing damage. Ranged DPS, after the phase where the ranged adds spawn, can return to the ramps about halfway down and stay there for the rest of the fight. A quick reminder of the buffs of the same type and rank do not stack. The first mini-boss of the right wing is Broodmother Szikalax. The boss will spawn spiders underneath it during the fight, AoE these adds down, stand behind the boss, easy enough. First boss of the right wing is Master Wrangler Glix. Increasingly powerful adds will spawn at 80%, 60%, 40%, and 20%. Careful of not AoEing too early with the add spawns to avoid gaining aggro. The DPS with the highest AoE damage output should have guard to help the tank gain aggro as the adds are approaching. Classes with an AoE knockdown should hold this ability for the final group of adds to reduce their damage the most. The next boss is Elder Kizzig the Waaagha. Kill all the snotlings that spawn with this boss with extreme care to avoid killing the snotling Chipfang, which will enrage the boss and have him kill the party. Chipfang can be pulled away from the group using the plates of food by where the boss spawns. Chipfang will chase a random member of the party as the boss loses health until another plate is picked up. Avoid AoE when Chipfang returns to prevent killing him. Take care when heading up this ramp, as using AoE near any of these tombstones will spawn 2 additional adds. The next mini-boss is Shaman Verboom. Shaman Verboom has no special mechanics, tank and spank. The next boss is Herald of Solithex. A ranged DPS or healer with a long-lasting dot with long range should aggro the boss to the upper platform. Sometimes without a dot, the boss will reset while it is pulling. The boss will spawn Sork Puddles as AoE ground effects. Don't stand at those. Also, Sorks shouldn't be using the puddles in this fight anyway, as it is mostly a single target fight, and that is bad DPS. This helps avoid general confusion as well. An ad will spawn when the boss reaches 50%, called Logazor Brightex. This ad, while alive, greatly reduces the Herald's damage taken, so you should focus down the ad and then kill the boss. The final boss of the right wing is Masta Mixa. When Masta Mixa is first pulled, a single Get Zapped to stick will spawn, permanently locking down a player until the Get Zapped has been killed. DPS and healers should stack behind the boss, so groups of adds that spawn during the fight can be grouped up by the tank more easily. Fists of Gork will spawn and target a random player of the party. These deal a small AoE. The player that aggroes them should step out of the group to avoid damaging the party. The Fists of Gork are immune to CC and damage. In a worst case scenario, the Fists of Gork can be kited around the room, as they are a little bit slower than the player. If you choose to do this, be careful when running around the room, as you will gain aggro of the random adds that spawn during the fight. 2 times during the fight, the boss will summon a large group of reinforcements. Make sure to be stacked so everybody can AoE these targets down fast, as they deal a large amount of damage. Large cooldowns such as AoE CC and AoE burst are best held for these phases. At 50%, 2 sticks will be summoned that also lock down the player. These sticks have reduced health from the 1 stick version. Marauders can use their pull ability to pull sticks together to AoE both down at the same time. At 20%, 3 sticks will spawn. This is a repeat of the 2 stick version. Also, these have less health. And at 10%, the last reinforcement phase will happen. Make sure to have your CC ready for when this happens. The first boss of the center wing is the Eye Big Oaf. It has a knockup mechanic, but range can generally avoid this completely by standing at max range. This will increase your damage. The hallway past the Eye Big Oaf holds a sneak peek at the next boss mechanic with these spider eggs. If you break one of these spider eggs using AoE abilities, it will spawn a number of champion spiderlings that can overwhelm your party. The next boss is Blaz the Tmin Masta and Velkyrrix. Make sure you're on the far side of the cauldron during the fight, so if you die, you can resurrect just outside the boss fight, instead of just after the Eye Big Oaf. Velkyrrix during this fight will lay eggs that spawn the spiderlings, as mentioned before. Avoid breaking these. If Velkyrrix dies, Blaz will enrage, killing the party. Once Blaz is dead, however, Velkyrrix will stop laying these eggs and be killed as normal. Velkyrrix, however, will not rebound or de-aggro if you attempt to run or move outside the normal boss arena. A geared run can AoE during this fight, but generally it's faster to just ignore AoE and fight as normal. The next boss is Arathremia. This boss will spawn adds at 90%, 80%, 70%, and 30%. AoE these down as fast as possible. The boss will mark players for death during the fight, but as a DPS, that falls firmly in the not our job category. The next boss is Herald of Solithex. This is possibly the most fun fight in the dungeon. Knockup can be avoided by range, similar to the Eye Big Oaf fight. At 70%, 4 giant skeleton ads will spawn, group them up, and AoE them down. At 40%, 4 pillars will spawn in the lower area of the boss arena. This is the hard part of the fight. These pillars will continuously spawn ads while they are alive, so you need to focus each one down individually as a group. The fewer pillars alive means less spawns happen. Careful with AoE during this, as the freshly spawned ads will aggro onto pretty much anything. Once all the pillars are dead, the ads will despawn. At 20%, the Soulstone of Solithex will become attackable. This is up on the second floor of the boss arena. DPS should run up there and kill the Soulstone as soon as possible. Once the Soulstone is destroyed, the boss fight can be fought as normal and killed. The final boss of the central wing and of Gunbad is Art to Feed, the massive squig. At 90%, 4 squig bubbles will spawn on the side of the boss arena. Kill these bubbles as they will continuously spawn unattackable and unCCable squigs that run to the boss and heal him as he eats them. Once these bubbles are destroyed, they don't pop back up. Then, at 80%, 60%, 40%, and 20%, Art to Feed will become empowered, requiring ranged DPS or a healer to press the 2 buttons on either side of the Morcane artifact at the same time. It is important they be pressed at the same time to depower Art to Feed. If the buff isn't cleansed, Art to Feed will wipe the party. I want to give a special thank you and shout out to the guild Goblin Workers Union, who helped with this Gunbad run to create this video. I hope you enjoyed the guide. If you're interested in the tanking guide, you can check that over on Surjek's channel, which will be linked down below. And if you're interested in the healer's version of this video, you can check out Shepasaurus' video, also linked down below. Thank you very much for watching. More content for Warhammer Online Return of Reckoning is sure to follow. Thanks. Bye.